Hi, my name is Ross Brink. I'm a Minnesota Green Corps member serving with the Crow-Wing Soil and Water Conservation District, and today I'm here to talk to you about native plants. So today's objectives, we're going to run through what is an insect. We're going to take a look at insects and their ecosystems or specific role they play in the environment, and then we're going to look at some native Minnesotan insects. So let's just kind of run through the basics of what an insect is. An insect is going to have three main body parts: the head, the thorax, and the abdomen. On the head you'll find the eyes, antennae, and mouth. The thorax is what attaches all 6 legs to an insect, and the wings. Insects will also have what is called an exoskeleton, which means the skeleton is on the outside of their body, forming a sort of shell. The shell is hard, and it is kind of like what we have as bones, except it's on the outside of their body. Now, if we look at different insects, they can look very different. They all have a head, they all have a thorax, and they all have an abdomen. They all have their 6 legs attaching to that middle segment, the thorax. But an ant doesn't have wings because it lives underground. A bee has wings because it has to fly flower to flower. A mayfly has wings because it has to cover a long distance over a short amount of time. And if we look at that water beetle's legs, you see those hairs that help it swim. Insects can also be very similar. You see all these butterflies here? Each of them has 4 separate wings that attach to its thorax. Each of them has 2 antennae coming out of the head. And if we were to look at the bottom, they would each have 6 legs connecting to their thorax. Another interesting thing about insects is that they can eat different things. Most commonly, insects eat leaves, rotting material, wood, or sap. On the left here we see a praying mantis, which even eats other bugs. In the middle here we see an insect that eats wood, and on the right we see a beetle that's eating the leaves of a tree. Insects can also inhabit or live in all kinds of different places. We see the box elderbug in the top left, which lives in wood and trees. On the top right, we see an ant colony where ants will live underground. On the bottom left, we see a beehive, which stores all kinds of bees or wasps. And in the bottom right, we see a water bug, which lives on the surface of water. Insects can also have different types of lifestyles. On the right, we see a wasp, which will be solitary its entire lifespan. But on the left, we see a social insect that lives in a colony, all working together towards the same goal. Insects have very similar life cycles. If you look, here we have a butterfly, a honeybee, and a mosquito. All of these insects start out as an egg. They go into a larval stage, which, if it's a butterfly, we'll call a caterpillar. And then they pupate, and then turn into the adult, which lays more eggs, and the cycle continues. We see this with the mosquito, where it goes eggs, larvae, pupae, adult. We see this in a honeybee, where it's egg, larvae, pupae, adult. Some insects pollinate, particularly bees. On the right we see a honeybee, and on the left we see a type of wasp. You may be wondering what pollination is. Pollination is the act of transferring pollen grains from the anther of a flower to the stigma. The goal of every living organism, including plants, is to create offspring for the next generation. One of the ways that plants can produce offspring is by making seeds. Seeds contain the genetic information to produce a new plant. Flowers are the tools that plants use to make their seeds. The basic parts of the flower are shown in this diagram. Seeds can only be produced when pollen is transferred between flowers of the same species. To do this, flowers must rely on insects to move pollen. We call animals or insects that transfer this pollen from plant to plant pollinators. Pollination is usually the result of an animal's activity on the flower. The pollinator is often eating pollen for its protein or other nutritional characteristics, or just sipping the nectar from the flower, when pollen grains will attach themselves to the animal's body. Now, when the animal goes to visit another flower for the same reason, pollen will fall off the flower onto the flower's stigma, and that will produce seeds for that flower. Now let's run through some common Minnesotan insects so you can maybe identify them when you're outside. We're going to take a look at ladybugs, monarchs, the rusty patch bumblebee, praying mantis, lightning bugs, dragonflies, and mayflies. Ladybugs are pretty great. There's over 5,000 different species of ladybugs, and they're considered good luck in some cultures. They can help farmers out by eating aphids. Aphids are smaller bugs that feed on plant sap and usually damage crops. And these bugs, ladybugs, are brightly colored because they usually taste terrible to birds and other predators. Monarchs are the next native insect we're going to talk about. Monarchs are large, beautifully colored butterflies that are easy to recognize by their orange and black and white markings. The wingspan of a full-grown monarch can reach nearly 5 inches. The most amazing thing about the monarch is the enormous migration that North American monarchs undertake each year. Every fall, as cold weather approaches, millions of these delicate insects leave their home range in Canada, the United States, and Minnesota and begin flying south. They continue until they reach southern California or central Mexico, in some cases traveling more than 2,000 miles. These international travelers then return to the same forests each year, and some even find the same tree that their parents landed on to lay their eggs. Up next is the rusty-patched bumblebee. The rusty-patched bumblebee is a species of bumblebee native to eastern North America. Its workers and males have a small rust-colored patch on the middle of their second abdominal segment, or thorax. This bee was once commonly distributed throughout Minnesota and the United States, but has declined down to about 13% of its original range in the last 20 years. The rusty-patched bumblebee was once an excellent pollinator of wildflowers, cranberries, and other important crops, but in 2019 was listed as an endangered species. A fun fact about this bee is that new hives are started from an individual queen every year. Praying mantises are another cool insect of Minnesota. There are about 1,800 species of praying mantises around the world, with 12 of those in Minnesota. Praying mantises are carnivores, eating mainly insects such as grasshoppers. This is why many gardeners and farmers welcome them, because the insects they eat are often the pests hurting their crops. Fireflies are another fun Minnesotan bug. There are more than 2,000 species of fireflies, but they get their name from their classic flash. Males will flash to attract females, and the lights they produce can be green, yellow, or orange, depending on the species. This ability of an animal to create light is called bioluminescence. Dragonflies are another cool insect. They first evolved over 300 million years ago. The first dragonflies had a wingspan of over 2 feet, but the evolution of predators that eat dragonflies made them smaller to what we see today. Across the world, there are more than 5,000 different species of dragonflies, and we like them a lot because dragonflies will eat their weight in mosquitoes every day. Mayflies are another interesting bug. They get to be over 1 inch long. They eat dead plant material and other insects as larvae, but adults don't eat because they only live up to 3 days. Mayfly larvae are a great indicator for water quality because the larvae only survive in very pristine, clean water. Thank you for taking the time to learn about Minnesotan native bugs. If you have any questions, you can email me at ross@cwswcd.org. You can call me at 218-828-6197, or you can visit our website at www.cwswcd.org. Thank you, and have a great day.